Hi, you guys. It is I, Coach Lakeisha, and today we are here for another conversation of Love Unfiltered. And my co host is about to join us any minute now, and I am so excited to have more of these conversations with you so that you can actually get to experience what it is like to work with a powerhouse coach. So, again, I'm Coach Lakeisha. I am a relationship coach, and I specifically work with women who are tired of being tired, right? Who are literally just like, I have had it up to here, and I would rather be single than go through another dating phase or talking phase, right? So, those are the women who are drawn to me and my content because they know that in working with me, I am going to help you step into your confidence, step into the version of you who is open and fully available for love. And these conversations of Love Unfiltered is all about us coming together and having open and honest conversations about love, relationships, literally unfiltered. So let me invite my co-host to join. I'm so excited to be here with you guys. Hi, gorgeous.
Hello, my love.
How are we
Oh, yeah,
feeling?
it feels like forever.
No.
How you doing out there? All the craziness in Cali.
Hey, we're like getting it together. It's like LA, we're staying strong.
Yeah. Mhm.
For
I
sure.
feel that. I feel that. Well, it's good to see you, and I'm glad you're safe.
Yes, thank you. And
Absolutely.
hello, everyone who's here. We're going to be having a conversation about dating fatigue. So, if you have any questions or you just like, please help me, talk to us in the comments.
Yes, absolutely. That dating fatigue. Did have you had that?
Absolutely.
What would you even say? Like, what is dating fatigue?
I feel like dating fatigue is that moment where like you ultimately feel so exhausted and the idea of going through another talking phase, you would just rather like jump in front of a bridge. Like you cannot do it anymore. There's also a part of you that is disconnected from the experience of dating. So you're kind of just like talking to people and going through the motions, but you're not actually allowing yourself to fully be present because you have nothing more to give. You're just so disconnected and numb from the entire thing. What about you?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I equated to like I remember the period where it was just like just my whole energy about dating. It just felt like a chore. It felt like it didn't feel fun, you know? Dating is supposed to be fun and give you energy, not necessarily drain you. And I see it in a lot of communities, but that's that feeling of just like I refuse to go on another date and da 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 da, and it like it's just like I mean we create our environment, but you know it's just that feeling of just like I'm over it. It's just feeling draining. It's not feeling like it's something that's pouring into you, you know. Um, and usually I would notice some signs when I would like message guys, and it just felt like it felt like almost like a responsibility, you know. It didn't feel fun. I didn't have that energy of like, ooh, like let me interact with this man, right? Like let me try to connect with this man. It was just kind of like, it just felt like a thing to do, another check to check off the list of the day, you know.
Yeah. I always tell people, I'm like, think about it like your job. Like, imagine your job writing you on a Saturday and being like, can you work today? And the way that you just like look at the message and you're just like, what? If you have that same energy towards somebody that you're talking to, and like, especially in that get to know you phase where, and it's just, it's supposed to be honeymoon vibes, and you're just like, ugh, I'm exhausted. Like, I have nothing more to give. And it's like, yeah, this is not a good match. And
That's
you
not
need to
it.
take a break and recalibrate.
I don't know how many times I like reset my dating profile, right? Like deleted it because I was just like, F this, I'm done. You know, like I'm not gonna find the one. He's not here. As we mentioned before, there's P, the dating pool, that type of
Mhm.
energy. And but now it's like I'm definitely in this stage of like this era in my life of like creating systems to make things more efficient, to make things feel good. And if it does not align, it is not it for me, you know?
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of like to think about it with dating too.
Mhm. And also just like having the knowledge of like, is this me self-sabotaging myself? Or is this truly just like not in alignment with where I am and I really need to like take a step back and like get myself together?
Yeah. So then, I mean, okay, so it's like, how do you know then? How do you, what are the signs? How do we determine, is this a me thing or is this an everyone else thing?
Yeah. I feel like you know your patterns, right? And it's just about identifying your patterns, right? So, me particularly, I was somebody who was very avoidant in relationships. So, it was nothing for me to like take a break and take a step back. And I would
Mhm.
often find myself, and I was like, okay, cool. When this person reached out to you, that thought about taking a break, was it your like first instinct or was it just like your ego talking of like, let's take a break because this person could potentially hurt you because they're getting too close and you don't like this connectedness or
Mhm.
whatever. And it was my ability to differentiate between self sabotage and intuition by knowing my patterns and saying, okay, cool, this one might be you.
Mhm.
Like, and it looks different in people who have anxious attachment styles in the sense that like they will probably lean more into it and like force themselves to continue on. But again, it's about knowing your pattern and saying, okay, in this moment right now, am I chasing something that does not feel good for me?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
having the wherewithal to drop your hands and walk away.
And that's a good point. And I think, yeah, I was definitely on the more anxious attached side where, and I was very disconnected from my body. So it was not up until way later in my dating era that I actually began to connect with my body to be able to determine like, oh yeah, this is intuition. This is, yes, we just need time off or we need to take a step back. We need to create a system, like whatever the case may be, right? But in the beginning, I didn't have that. And I was very much so just kind of pushing forward. Like, I think a major part of it for me was that it felt like I was going, like, I didn't have a purpose. Like, I knew I wanted a man, I knew I wanted to be married, right? But like, going into conversations with men and actually um, trying to connect with them outside of like, oh, could you be my man? Could you be my potential husband?
Yeah.
Really made a difference. And I just found myself like going on dates. Like, I don't know if you've ever been on one where you end up like, you're just kind of like, you don't even get excited. You're getting ready, you're not like, ooh, like I'm going to this place with this man. It's more like, okay, here, going on a date. At least it's a date, like I was just going through the motions and it didn't feel good. It didn't, and that affected my energy, right? Like, so I'm not showing up to the date excited. I'm probably not communicating with the man where I'm showing genuine interest because I'm already not feeling it. And I was definitely, it wasn't until way later that I realized I was a people pleaser, right? I know that term is like so trendy now, but
So, what
for a
is
long time, like, I
it?
didn't know, we just, it was just something that I saw in family members, I saw in people around me, and it was just something I just kind of duplicated. So I realized I'm actually like doing all these things that actually, like, I don't desire to do. Going on dates, like saying yes to dates to go to a bar when I didn't really want to go to a bar, or when I would have preferred to go on a hike. Like, I found myself saying yes to a lot of things that just did not align with me out of fear of scarcity, or thinking like, well, I haven't had a date in so long, like just thinking like, I don't know when the next man's going to come along. And at least he's showing some type of interest. It was a cycle of just blah.
And I feel like when you were in an environment where you're doing something that you don't necessarily want to be doing, it could be the most exhausting thing trying to
Yeah.
muster up energy to see it through, to show up on the date and like smile and like actually pay attention to what the other person is talking about, especially if the date doesn't interest you.
Right, right. And that's not something we think about. Like actually paying attention to how our body feels when we're asked a question, when we're asked out on the date or when we're even talking to the man. Because it was not until, again, getting my dating coach and getting my life together that I finally started to pay attention to certain things like how my body is feeling, even when I'm engaging in conversation with a man. And actually paying attention. Like, just because a man responds does not mean he's interested, you
Mhm.
know? So noticing, okay, I asked him a question, I gave a little, witty comment or something. Did he just respond to that? Or did he actually ask me a question that shows genuine interest about me? Maybe not initially. Is he just saying, any question I ask him, is he just repeating my same, well, what about you? Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like those types of things now that I pick up on, and it's like, that's a no for me. Like we wouldn't even make it to a phone call, let alone a date. So
Mhm.
it's like certain things like that we need to actually pick up on. But I would not, if I was connected to my body and if I was actually paying attention to what I truly wanted and what was aligned, I wouldn't have went on a fraction of those dates that I have in the past, you
Yeah,
know?
for sure. Okay, so when you say connect to your body, right? Because I feel like we all have a different understanding of like what that means. For me specifically, it means that like I was disconnected from self. I was disconnected from source, from my intuition, and I wasn't listening to the nudges that, my energy was giving me. I was talking to people. I literally, when I say my body speaks to me, like, and if I don't listen, it is gonna go haywire. I remember going on a date that I didn't want to go on and breaking out in hives, like just
Mm.
from him giving me a hug. And I was like, I think I'm allergic to like the fabric in your sweater, like your detergent or something like that. And I was like, I literally have to go home. And it was like the minute that I was away from that man, my skin calmed down.
Oh, wow. That's definitely a clear sign.
For sure. So for me, listening to my body means literally paying attention to how my body reacts in certain situations
Mhm.
and the little nudges or big nudges that I get in interacting with other people and even in my own interaction with myself. But what does it look like for you?
Yeah, so for me, because, my like past sexual trauma and things like that led me to be completely disconnected from my body. Like, um, connecting to my body, once I started to pay attention, I started to feel these like this either a heaviness, like it would just feel like a weight, usually in my like core region,
Mhm.
or I'd feel heat. That's another sign. I feel heat in my body. And also like itching. I don't know if you ever got that. Well, hives, but yeah, like definitely itching was one. I didn't get hives, but just that irritation, like that's how it like presented itself in my body. And but a lot of times we ignore them. We ignore the the signs and the symptoms, until obviously like something happens, like yeah, extreme hives, right? And I would say connecting to my body was definitely a journey. And I know like you're a yogi, and I love that. Well, I already told you, but I just got into like aerial yoga, which has been amazing. Um, One of my ways that I connected to my body, reconnected, was plant medicine. And I'm like down to my core, I'm a plant medicine girly. I was definitely a shaman in a past life. Um, that helped me to learn to pay attention to parts of my body. It taught me to be still. It taught me to quiet my mind, to meditate, like all of the things. So that was definitely my way. Has yoga always been like the thing for you that helped you to connect, or did you try other methods as well?
I feel like yoga was my natural like default. Even since I was a kid, I didn't realize that what I was doing was yoga, but I would always find myself feeling extremely overwhelmed and then just like going into my room and doing this little weird things with my body before I like picked up my book and got lost in the characters. But I've also tried other modalities and things like that. I haven't gone into like the plant medicine world as deeply as you, but like it is absolutely on my to-do list. And
Yes.
my body is giving me like a visceral yes, even as I talk about it for 2025. So I'm excited to see how I can incorporate both of those things and what it will like open for me and my body.
Yes. And that's I think that's like such an exciting part of the journey. It's like discovering, you've been doing yoga for years, but like now incorporating something else with it or, trying a different modality could open you up in a completely different way. Um, but it made me think about my past because like I used to dance when I grew up. My mom when I changed and I decided I wanted to go like a medical route and help people like medically, um, my mom was kind of like disappointed because she swore I was gonna be like Beyonce's like backup dancer. I love to choreograph dances and like I would choreograph dances and then me and my like sister would like present it to the family and stuff like that. Like I loved that type of movement. And I even like in my past life I used to teach like a twerk class for like women empowerment and things like that. Always loved like hip hop dance. I was very intrigued by like ballet and stuff, but I never took like classes like that. But then I moved with my dad, and my dad was like the ultimate, all the way left field of a Jehovah's Witness, and so that really stifled because we ain't even listening to music that I could dance to, like the music we was listening to in that house. I was not about to be dancing to that.
Mhm.
So I stopped dancing and I got more into like singing. And now that I think about it, it actually makes sense because when I lived with my dad, I felt like I wasn't heard a lot of times.
Mm.
So, of course, I wanted to do something to use that throat chakra because I was silenced. I was silenced.
Yeah.
And I didn't really, that's actually my first time, like, kind of making that type of connection. Do you have any type of connection, like, from any core wounds of yours or, traumas or anything like that?
I'm always intrigued how people respond to their traumas and how sometimes people go like so far out. Like you were just like, no, I'm going to figure out how to express myself. I'm going to sing. Me, it was absolutely the opposite. Um,
Mm.
my sisters are dancers and they used to choreograph dances and they just like needed another body in the room and I would just be there like trying my hardest, but your girl couldn't dance. And as a result of that, I just stopped moving my body and I became very sedimentary. I don't know how to say the word,
Yeah.
but like I just stopped and eventually got to a point where I even stopped doing yoga. And I eventually it went so far out that I was diagnosed at like 14 with rheumatoid arthritis. And I just wouldn't move my body at all. And I was just like, okay, I don't feel safe. Um, I don't feel seen, so I am just going to shrink myself in the smallest way possible.
Mm.
And that was how I responded to all the
Yeah.
drama. But now I took my first dance class like 6 months ago, and I did a terrible job, but I had the most fun ever. Like those girls were so encouraging. I was like, I cannot pick up these steps at all, but like we're getting it together. I'm actually going to a twerk class in a couple weeks.
Mm.
So I'm definitely now with the yoga, I've decided to incorporate more movement and like music and things like that. And it has been absolutely so healing to my soul. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I can't believe I stifled this part of me.
Hmm. And that makes me even think about because how we resist things. When I moved with my dad, again, like stopped dancing, and then I eventually went into trying to like, just use my voice, and I enjoyed singing and things like that. But I spent so much of that time thinking back to the old version of me, the person that was like dancing and using, and moving her body and things like that. And I became sedentary too, like just I didn't really do much. So a lot of my body was like constricted. There was a lot of, stiffness.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I was holding on to the past. And when I think about that kind of resistance, because then when I became an adult, and I mean, I did have my period of kind of like wilding out a little bit, like being a club promoter and, just new kid on the block and twerking like 5, 6 days of the week, literally. Um, but when I tried to do it with intention, like because I was so attached to the old version of me, and now I'm like, this is like 7, 10 years later, um, I felt stuck and I felt kind of lost because like I tried to do it, it felt like I had lost it, like that gift. But I had stifled it for so long. And instead of just kind of like navigating the journey as far as like how we would say now, right? Like the path of least resistance, I was so stuck on these like past identities or what I thought, were my identities. And that led to a lot of honestly depression because I was so disconnected from self.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh, I'm using my voice like, and I really enjoy singing, but I thought I was doing it out of almost like what do you call that? Like, why is the word not coming to my um
Have this.
like I didn't feel like it was coming from a place of alignment that I was making the choice to do it. I was doing it more so, well, I can't do this, so I guess I'll do this more, And I feel like that's actually a lot of that's very similar to how we make decisions. Most people, we're not actually guided in making our decisions from a grounded, empowered space. We're not making decisions because it's truly in alignment. We're making them out of feeling like we just out of responsibility, out of just kind of being an autopilot. We're doing it out of scarcity. We're doing it for all the other reasons outside of this is truly what I want to do. This is
Mm-hmm.
truly something I'm excited to do. And that just kind of brings it back into the dating realm. It's the same thing. If we don't have like a purpose and also going into stuff with like a curiosity versus okay, I'm just gonna do this. Like, yeah, I'll go out with this man. If a man asks you out, a woman, whatever, and like there is a resistance, there is like a pause. Or I've even found, I don't know if you had this, but like I would respond to men and I'd find myself rolling my eyes. Like I'm irritated. Why am I engaging? Because I felt like, oh, I got to rush to respond really quick to this person because I don't want to leave them waiting because, oh, connection. I remember not feeling seen and heard and I don't want to make someone else feel that way. So I feel like I got to like hurry up and respond to you because like I owe you or something. No. If you feel that resistance, give yourself time. Allow yourself to truly go after or not go after what you want or do not want.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I always teach my clients, I'm like, are we operating from a place of wetness, from a place of pleasure, right? That
Mhm.
like excited openness, where it's like, even if it's something that's uncomfortable, that like that difficult conversation or like opening yourself up and just being like, hey, I like you, and all of those things, even if it's something that like pushes you out of your comfort zone, does it bring you pleasure? Is this ultimately something that is leading you towards abundance and play
Mhm.
and joy? And if we're not operating from that place, then we need to sit back and take a minute and just be like, okay, cool. Then we must be operating from a place of lack. And where is there lack in my mind? Where is there lack in my energy? So, for all the people who are here, what is an area in dating where you just feel like it isn't working out, or like a limiting belief that you may have around love and relationships. Because you
Yeah,
guys gotta give us a little something, something.
right.
But so when you started bringing back dance into your life, did you continue singing?
So I did. And there was this weird like dynamic of like even kind of imposter syndrome because I just didn't know who the hell I was, you know? It was just like I didn't really know. I was like I've been trying to go back to dance for all this time, but then I felt like I lost touch. But then I did want to sing, but then I was like, girl, you don't even know how to sing. So it was like, why are you, you know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong, I don't have a bad voice, but I'm not a singer, you know? And there was also a dynamic because my mom and my sister have that gift of voice. So there was also that like wound of, you know, feeling like a black sheep in the family and wanting to be, you know, like them. Um, so it was definitely this weird dynamic. I tried to do both. And eventually I came into the decision of like, I'm going to do all of it. Like, I'm going to do all of it. But I also realized like, as much as I will sit up here, I love like watching like the hip hop dance videos and, um, or like, what are those, well, it's not couples classes, but those like group dance classes where they, you know, they be doing the swinging and, you know, all kinds of stuff. Like, I would love to do stuff like that. But you know, one day, maybe, but I'll watch those videos all day. But I realized, okay, we can still incorporate the movement, just like how you said, you know, you're incorporate like you now go into a twerk class and things like that. Now I'm learning to incorporate different types of movement. It doesn't have to be just dance. It doesn't have to be just going to the gym for me. And that is when I, you know, yeah, like I found aerial yoga and I love it. It stretches me, it challenges me, and I'm really excited to see over time like how, you know, the body responds to like doing this consistently.
Mm-hmm. Earlier you were talking about like how you had your time where you were like a party promoter and you were like dancing like all these things, and I was like, girl, when I say that I was not dancing, I was like in the EDMN clubs and I was just like there was no twerking, there was no hip movement going on whatsoever.
Yeah.
Because I am not a good singer. I cannot hold a tune, but I have never had like any fright about singing. I go to karaoke, I will do it sober. I will sing a Whitney Houston song without a care in the world and
Mm.
absolutely expect a standing ovation. But like to dance, I'd be like, no, I'm fine. And like even in the beginning when I started like moving my body recently, I would like get in the back of the class and stuff like that. And I remember they started breaking us up into like smaller groups, and I was just like, oh, a group of 3 people, and everybody's watching. Oh no, 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 I'm okay. Don't look at me. And now I'm in this place where it just feels so beautiful and expansive for me just to allow my body to be a work of art in the space of movement and dance. That even if I miss a step, I'm like, that's cool. I'm still grooving.
Yeah.
Rhythm will be found.
And that's honestly, and that again, it does translate into the dating world, right? Like how we express ourselves or, you know, don't allow ourselves to express ourselves. Somebody said something, I was like, wow, that is so true. Like so many of us, there's a lot of people out here that are afraid to yawn in public or stretch in public because they're just so used to that constriction. I don't want to be seen. I don't need to be heard. I don't need to make waves, right? And it's like when you think about that, that's kind like when I thought about it, I was just like, that's crazy. But it's so true because I used to be one of those people. Listen, I'm gonna tell you, and this is kind of embarrassing. But listen, I remember I was in school and I'm like, where did this come from? Because the crazy part about it was a lot of people, like even my best friend, one of my best friends, she told me when she met me, she thought I was like stuck up and stuff. And I'm like, I was the most insecure, just very, but I've always challenged myself to like, I'll still go to the different groups. I'll move around. I'll try things. Like I'm the one that not afraid to move out of state when everybody's here or go to the you know go to the army or whatever the case may be. Like I'll cut my hair off like and have a bald fade. Like I do the things, but inside I'm just like very, very small. But I remember in school, like, when you get kind of the sniffles or whatever, you get, the little, I would, I used to like sit in the middle of class and I would have the sniffles. And mind you, it's like that time of year, right? Everybody and their mama is sick.
Yeah.
When I tell you I had this extreme anxiety to even get up to go blow my nose. So what did your girl do? Yeah, we use the sleeves. We use like when I tell you I tried to do anything to just stay like
Yeah.
it was just like I didn't even I even like tried to suppress my sneezes. Like that is how bad it is. Can you imagine? Like that's crazy. Like we yawn, we stretch, we blow our
Yeah.
nose. You know what I mean? Like I had this just such a deep anxiety about like essentially being seen.
Hmm.
And that's how deep it goes. Like that's it's just kind of crazy. Um, I even noticed that in my daughter for a time, and I had a conversation with her, and fortunately, I was aware of that dynamic. And we
Hmm.
joked about it, but I told her about my experiences, like kind of like having the same thing, and I'm just like, wow. And then here we are, if we're comparing it to our dating life, we're not
Hmm.
speaking up. We're not saying, yeah, no, that date doesn't interest me. Or I would really love, like, when are you available? Are you available on Thursday at 5 to get on a video chat? Because I'd really love to, like, connect with you that way before we go on a date rather than just texting, all the time and, like, not really knowing where it's going. Like, I'm speaking up now. We are expressing our desires. But the thing is, I used to do stuff, there was a sense of entitlement because it's like, I'm a good woman, da 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 da. I deserve this, right? And now there's a completely different energy.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, we absolutely deserve it, but now I communicate it in a way that even men be kind of caught off guard. Like, oh, well, absolutely. They have no problem because
Hmm.
I'm clear and I'm
Yes.
communicating in a way that is not talking down to them or shunning them for like, how dare you want to text me? And, like, no, none of that. So it does shift the energy and the dynamics in dating when you learn to actually express yourself.
Hmm. And I feel like learning what you need, right? Like, and us realizing how we were stifling ourselves in movement, it was like, okay, cool.
Apple
I
juice
get
TikTok.
I do stuff like that too, so it's fine. But like in realizing like what we need so that we can effectively communicate that with the people that we're in communication with and we're dating, even if it is in the early stages. I always tell my friends, I'm like, I am very like solid now as a person in who I am. And although I am like open to change and like trying new experiences, there are just certain things that I do not care to experience. And I'm fine not like not going out of my boundaries, right? To like have something. Like how you were saying about going on the date to the bar. It's like I don't desire to go on a date to the bar. And maybe eventually, like, I'll be like, oh, yeah, sure, like, let's go to the bar really quickly. But I'm like, no, 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 no. That isn't what I desire right now.
Hmm.
Right now, I'd like to have an intimate conversation with you that isn't surrounded by all of these energies and all these things happening around me. And I feel comfortable and confident in communicating that. So, like, now I'm in a partnership, but I don't, I had stopped feeling emotionally fatigued when I was dating because I was very clear about who I was. I was very clear about what it is that I desired and what I was ready to receive in my world and how I showed up. And the more confident I was in me, and when I say confident, I do not mean without insecurity. It just means that I am not an insecure person. And I think there's a difference. But the more confident I was in who I am, I was able to fully show up and allow myself to be seen, to be heard, and express my boundaries and actually get them met and all of my needs.
Yes, and that's such a thing that I feel like most people just don't realize the power in. You know, it's
Yeah.
almost like if you get clear, right? Like if you create almost like this vision board, even, you know, not necessarily you ain't got to get magazines or anything, but even if you just wrote down the types of things that you want to experience, the types of dates you want to go on, the types of, feelings that you want to feel, right? Like I want to feel adored. I want to feel light. I want to feel, um, energetic. I want it to be playful. The type of man that we want. Like we don't think we just be thinking like we're just it's almost like there's just like, well, whatever can what can I reach? What's within my reach? And let me just see. No? Okay, next one. Like we just kind
Mhm.
of go into it just willy-nilly and without purpose, without intention. And without that clarity on, again, like you said, what we need and what we desire, it's going to make it very difficult to get those needs met. Like if we don't know what they are, like how can we, get them met? And the thing about it is that I found once you kind of graduate to this energy of not thinking like, oh, I got to accept all the dates because I don't like hardly get them, or I don't know when the next man is going to come, or whatever the case, and we're just making decisions out of scarcity. Once you make those decisions from a more like empowered space and alignment, there you'll actually, not that we don't, right, because we still do want to speak up and ask for the things that we want, but we will find that we actually will be provided for without even having to ask. And that's the shift, because we think like scarcity, like, oh, I gotta, I'm what kind of woman are people going to think that I am if I ask this man for something? Because I ask for things and I ain't got no problem getting it.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times I'll mention something, and next thing I know, it's getting the need is getting fulfilled. The problem is getting solved because you're just in the energy of receiving. You're in the energy of just being, and that is what attracts. But rather than going into kind of the dating experience and thinking like, okay, like what can I get from this man, or what, like rather than just enjoying the process, and we're thinking of dating or getting the relationship as the end goal and not really having clarity, it creates resistance in that, so it's very important to get clear on, again, what needs. And this is why this is actually a big part in, I know you have your coaching program, so I'd love to hear like, what you kind of work through with your clients. But I have a big part of the one of the modules is to learn what your core values are, because
Mhm.
essentially if you know your core values, you have your template for your life, right? You can assess every decision, every relationship, every environment against what your core values are.
Yeah.
Anytime we're triggered, anytime, even connecting, you can connect your you can determine your core values off of a number of things. But once you like know what your core values are, there's no reason why, not to say that decisions aren't going to be hard, because they still may be difficult because there's emotions tied in there, right? Like we're still human, but we have more clarity on how we can move in our lives when we know what our intentions are, when we know what our needs are, what our values are.
Yeah. Ah, those core values will take you so far. And for a
Yeah.
long time, I didn't realize what mine was. Like you said earlier, I feel like for a long time, I just was like, I want a man who's attractive, who has a good job, and who's funny. And I was like, and that's what I'm
Mhm.
going to date. And it's like, here I am trying to sort through and go on a bunch of dates and go through texting phases with 10 people. When in reality, it's like, if I would have narrowed down my search around what I was specifically looking for and not just looks and not just like from an economic standpoint, but from my actual needs,
Yeah.
then it was just like, wow,
Yeah.
I only need to talk to two people. We were going to get that list down real quick. Once I
Yeah.
realized, like, hey, I want someone who values family, I want someone who values travel. And then it was just like, okay, cool. I am no longer wasting my time and my energy talking to people who may be good men for someone else, who may have a lot of qualities that I do like, that I do admire, but they are just not my person.
Yeah.
Able to be like, okay, I can make the tough choice and say I'm walking away from this partnership, knowing that something more aligned is out there. Even though this feels good, there's something better out there for me.
Yeah. And then can we talk about it? Can we talk about the fact that essentially us feeling overwhelmed in dating, we're creating that feeling ourselves, right? Because we're
Mhm.
saying yes to a lot of things that we don't really want to do, or we're staying in situationships way longer because we just think this is it. And then we're allowing ourselves to think like, well, it's really just a lot of those like limiting beliefs that we have around dating. We're taking things personal. The
Mhm.
thing is, when you're especially on the dating like site, and this is where a lot of people tend to get in their feelings about dating sites, right? Oh, it's not for me. It's horrible, and it's
Yeah.
it's it's like way worse. I'll just meet people in real life, but you're not. You're not meeting people in real life. You ain't going nowhere.
Unless it's the Amazon driver, you're not meeting anyone.
Anyone. Um, but the thing is, we're taking things personally, and it drains us because instead of thinking like, hey, I'm gonna like swipe here, or whatever, and even if I swipe, 10 minutes or whatever, and I don't get a match, like I'm taking it personal, like it means something about my identity. I'm
Mhm.
taking it personal if I got really excited about this guy and we matched, and second message in, he's making like sexual innuendo like type of comments. I'm taking it personally rather than just setting a boundary. Hey, I'm really interested in getting to know you, but I don't feel comfortable with like, having that type of conversation right now. You know, I'm not available for that, and
Mhm.
leaving it there. Because at the end of the day, if I feel uncomfortable with it and then I don't say anything, like I'm just what is happening? It's only going to affect me, right?
No, because I'm
So
fine.
he's doing good. He's fine. He's getting by. You ain't saying nothing, so he's seeing that he can get away with murder essentially. So it's like paying attention to the things like that. Like, why would we want to stay around people that are doing things that we don't like? If
Mhm.
that is something that is a real like trigger for you, like people making comments about your body, or like, oh, like making references like, oh, well, would you like want to come to my house type of thing, right? Like that used to be, because I'm like, who do you think I am? Like it was just this like very, but why are we taking these things personally?
Mhm.
Because people gonna try it. Like, why wouldn't they? Why
Definitely.
wouldn't they want to try you?
Yeah.
Like, make it make sense. But a lot of times we're tying these negative experiences instead of taking them as lessons, okay, or even just keeping an optimistic, energy about like that doesn't mean just because I've had a week or two of like dryness in my inbox does not mean that like the world is going to shut down. It doesn't mean that I'm not going to find my person. It doesn't mean anything. It just is.
Yeah.
But hey, maybe what can I do? Maybe I can take some photos the next time I go out with my girlfriends and revamp my profile. Maybe I can make some new dating prompts. You know what I mean? Spice it up. Use Chat GPT if you feel a little froggy.
Yeah.
Like what can I do to change this dynamic, right?
Mhm.
Where am I? If I'm noticing there's a lot of men that are making these sexual comments, okay, well, maybe like, am I saying something? Am I leading them there? Like, what can I do to take control? A lot of times we go in these dating processes feeling like we don't have autonomy and we
Mhm.
truly have complete control.
Yeah, for sure. I always tell people, I'm like, you cannot change who hits on you and like what their approach is. But you can absolutely determine whether or not you engage in that conversation. So if someone is doing something or initiating something that you do not like and it is not in alignment with what you desire for that partnership, especially right now, then it's fine for you to walk away. It's fine for you to set that firm boundary, even if you don't want to communicate. Because sometimes I tell my clients, I'm like, you don't have to write back if you don't want to. Like, you don't owe that person anything. Okay.
Right.
And every now and then you can add a little rizz, you can add a little spiciness if you want to, if you want to continue to engage and things like that. But ultimately, like, we don't have to do anything that we don't want to do.
Yeah.
And as women, I feel like we're taught to be really nice and really docile and quiet and just like accepting of whatever the man gives us. And I'm absolutely not, I don't follow that rhetoric. I teach my clients, I'm like, you are a woman, here you roar. And like, be firm on what it is that you desire and the type of communication that you want to have. If somebody writes you and they're like talking about adult play and you aren't interested, then be firm and just be like, please, you know, like, let's not, and say we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I feel like in moving in a place of me finding joy in dating, again, whether it was online or in person, I found that I was able to attract different type of partners when I was no longer emotionally unavailable myself. Because if I was truly closed off and I was truly just like had this guard around myself and all of these negative beliefs around what the dating pool was like, then ultimately, if I was in a bar, out of the 10 men that was trying to talk to me, the one who was emotionally healthy and intelligent, I wasn't paying that guy any mind. I was going for the guy on the other end that was going to try to like take me home or have suggestive conversations and absolutely not meet any of my standards that I allegedly had that I didn't stand by. But it was like once I started doing that internal work and building that new self concept within myself, it was just like, okay, cool. That guy is actually attractive.
Yeah.
And I can bag him if I want him.
Yeah.
So let me stop paying attention to Tyrone and start paying attention to David.
Good old David.
You sound reliable.
Yeah, no, that's so important, and I think too another area to look at as well is I found that a lot of times I was feeling overwhelmed and burnt out from the dating process because I was looking for men to fill voids rather than filling it myself. I found that I was doing a lot of, I'd be asking like, oh, what about a picnic or things like that. And I finally like understood and got to the point of like why, because I realized like when it didn't, when it didn't work out with the man, right? Like and the date didn't happen or whatever the case may be, right? The connection ended for whatever reason, then I'm feeling even more of a void because I'm looking for him to give me this like feeling of significance, this feeling of, validation, this feeling of feeling loved and cared for when obviously we know that that's not something that really anyone else can give you, right? Like we might think that we have these temporary feelings of it, but you're not really getting it. What you're getting is those quick, like little dopamine hits that go away as soon as the person is gone.
Sure do.
Anxious attachment. So it's so important. What I realized is to give myself exactly what I am seeking. So if I'm desiring more romantic dates and picnics and, little cute dates with the charcuterie board or, going to like more artsy types of events or a museum, like, let me do that for myself. Hell, let me go with my girlfriends and, like my friend group and do it. I don't have to, I was literally waiting on a man to do a lot of the things that I was desiring. And that just left me feeling all kinds of incomplete, feeling like I'm not enough because it kept not happening from men. But how can you ask for something that you're not giving yourself or you're not even willing to give yourself? So also pay attention and be honest with yourself, right? And ask if you are giving yourself what you're seeking. Because a lot of times we're like, oh, I want this kind of man, and I'm very clear on, I want the relationship and all that stuff, but what need is that filling for you? And are you truly the person that is mentally and emotionally, ready for that type of energy, for that type of connection? Because when I wasn't, and then I did, don't get me wrong, it's not to say you can't meet this man. We see it in movies, right? It is possible.
Yeah.
But more than likely, you're not going to have the mindset to maintain those types of connections, right? So just really paying attention to what I'm giving myself. So I learned to you see it on TikTok, but really romanticizing your life. Like
Mhm.
you can do self care dates for yourself, whether you are a man or a woman. It don't, whatever your tax bracket is, like there's really no excuse because you could go to Dollar General and pick up a couple candles, some like your favorite snacks or whatever, get a movie on Netflix, turn your phone off and just really like light some candles and just have the scent going, have a good drink, whatever the case may be, right? Cook yourself a meal and just take your time with it. You can also, do different activities, you know. Um, you don't have to, if you find yourself waiting for a specific person to fill a need, that's your sign right there that you need to check yourself.
Definitely. I always ask my clients, I'm like, okay, out of all the five love languages, I do believe that we all need all five. But I'm like, what is the top one that you feel like you need in your life right now that you need from a partner? And they always notice the girls who say words of affirmation. I love a partner to shower me in words of affirmation. Those are the same people who absolutely are their biggest critics and they speak
Yeah.
so negatively to themselves. The girls who are like, I love giving gifts and I love showering my partners with gifts. Those are the same girls who deny themselves the simplest of things. And it's just like,
Or
how?
buy things and then feel guilty.
Yes, and it's like, how? I was somebody who I valued quality time, and I prioritized quality time with all of these other people, and I gave none to myself. And I finally bought myself a coloring book, and I was just like, wow, I deeply enjoy my time spent with myself and my coloring book. Giving
Mm-hmm.
me that quality time. That isn't about doing things for other people and making other people happy, but literally just refilling my own cup. And I
Right.
literally started scheduling time to spend quality time with myself. And when people would ask me like, "Oh, what you doing tomorrow?" I'm busy. Oh, what you doing? It don't even matter, girl. It don't even matter. The schedule is booked. Okay. In the same way that I prioritize going to work on time, I'm prioritizing this time for myself. So whether it's gift giving, quality time, words of affirmation, or whatever the case may be, prioritize that in your own life and figure out ways to incorporate it even in your day-to-day life, because I can tell you, when you start operating from a place of play and pleasure, your entire world expands because you're just so open and available to the goodness that you probably don't even have to get on the dating site. You're going to meet the guy in like Starbucks or something like that, or you'll just begin to have better experiences with men. I noticed that, like, the more I was happy with myself, the more I changed the type of men that I encountered. More men would open the door for me and offer to help me if I was lost, or just like buy me a coffee and little things like that. And I was just like, wow, I wouldn't have been able to receive this before because I was so angry and bitter. Like, I would
Yeah.
have talked at the man who opened the door.
Yeah, right. And that stuff seemed like major, right? And not to say it's like not minimizing it, but it's like we weren't even like, oh, a man that would just like turn around and buy my coffee, like just randomly, like that stuff like that just seemed like out of this world to me. And I love because we're so in sync. That's like something I walk my clients through as well. Like the love languages, I tell them just as much as because I used to actually be one of those people. Anytime I got in a new connection, let's do our love language test. I wanted to know because I'm like, let me show you, like, let me show you how good I can love you, right?
Mhm.
Um, so I have this like actual assessment, like what language do you speak? And we get very detailed on the love languages and like how, like you said, it's important to incorporate them daily. And a lot of times, anytime we have any type of negative feeling, anytime we're activated, anytime we're triggered, anytime we are feeling some kind of way, that is a time for you to pause and ask yourself, what need is not being met? What value is not being honored right now? Because there's something within you that like your inner child or your subconscious, like there's a part of you that is needing something, that is needing attention. But a lot of times our focus is externally. Like you said, we're trying to give all the love languages to everybody else, right? We're trying to give all the quality time, all the gifts, all the physical touch, but we're not thinking about we desire those things. And then if you think about it, I don't know if you have people, because there's a lot of people that they are trying to love their partners in their own language rather than their partner's language.
Mm-hmm.
We have different ones. And just because yours is that does not mean that's what, because you could be literally saying, hey, I'm giving you gifts. But if your partner's is quality time, it's not going to, like you're saying, I love you, I'm doing this for you. It's not going to be received that way. So we get very detailed on how can I incorporate this into my life? Because it's obviously something that is important, but it's a lot of people, we don't think about it, and there's so many things, like you said, like quality time could be coloring in a coloring book. Quality time could be, watching that show on Netflix you've been wanting to catch up on. It could be just, finally getting the stuff and cooking that bomb dish that you saw on TikTok and you saved like 2 months ago. Too excited about,
I
you
gotta
know.
do that. I got some stuff saved.
Yes, like I be looking all the time. Like there's so many ways to incorporate art, and they don't have to be these grand things. That's the thing that we think about. Like I know I used to always have it in my mind. Oh, I just want to be taken to like a 5-star restaurant, right? And like things like that. Like and that's really not even what's gonna fill you up.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many ways that we can pour into ourselves, but a lot of times we're so in survival mode and that like fight, flight, or freeze that we think that stuff is extra, right? But it's kind of funny because like psychologically speaking, we're thinking like the relationship is not extra, right? Because like I know when I used to go into connections, like, man, listen, we ride or die. Like I'm your wife, okay? Like till death do us part,
Mm-hmm.
But we don't look at ourselves like that. We don't treat ourselves like a priority.
Yeah. Okay, I have a question. So, in realizing that I deeply enjoyed quality time, I realized that I also, when I am triggered, I respond to my partner by, well, I would respond to my partner by taking back the quality time and I would like go into isolation. Right. So, in doing the love languages test and having conversations with my partner, it would be like, I remember asking, like, okay, so and I always get people who their top one is like physical touch, and I'm always just like, whoa, let's be easy on that, right? And they're like, oh, in conflict, I want to hold your hand and like talk through our things, and I'm like, oh, that is the last thing I want to do in this moment. Do not
Mm,
want to hold your hand. I want to run.
okay.
Okay, I need to play. I need quality time alone. But it took me in doing the work and identifying the thing that I need and also realizing that that was also my way of avoidance and running away from my problems. Did you find that comparison in you, in your love language?
To essentially like maladaptive behaviors. I mean, yeah, because your girl was toxic. I had a lot of toxic behaviors. I would definitely, which it makes sense because like even what you just said about like kind of trying to withdraw like the quality time, almost like a punishment, you
Mhm.
know. Um, but it made sense because I was essentially doing that to myself.
Yes.
Like, so it's like, I definitely, yeah, I did that a lot. And that's kind of funny because like I'm trying to think of like dynamics growing up, like with my parents and things like that. Like, I don't know, did you notice in your family dynamic, did you see that or where did that come from? I'm trying to think
Yeah.
like,
I noticed that there would just be like little things where like, oh, like I got in trouble and stuff like that. And it was like, oh, that family thing that we were about to do, like now you don't get to do that. And
Yeah,
I'm
that's
like,
true.
oh, okay.
So we
Or like,
punish. Yeah.
yeah. Or like my mom was very much big on like words of affirmation and stuff. And it's like, oh, you're like showering me with like all this love and like all the things. But then in that moment when like I'm in trouble, it's like your words are like killing me right now.
Yeah.
And it's
That's,
like,
yeah, that was
okay,
definitely in my
cool.
household. Yeah.
Right? Or like the idea that someone like they love giving gifts and it's like, okay, you've just done something to make me mad. I'm taking the gift back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
interesting. How are we responding in love and also in conflict?
Yeah.
How we love.
Absolutely. I even remember, yeah, like, you'd have like certain things planned or outings. Like I remember it being like having field trips at school. Already signed off on, but then something happened and I get in trouble and I can't go anymore. Like it's like, yeah, like we're going to take things away, and that it's just kind of crazy when you think about like how that affects you and even into your like adult life, even in things that aren't specifically related to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I found myself even when my daughter was younger that I would do that as well. Like I felt like I have to show you I'm mad at you, so I need to withhold something that you desire from you.
Yeah.
And that's like the most, and that, like, now that I even think about it, like, because, we're making connections,
Yeah.
it's like I'm even seeing that from one of the things that really got me away from like being a Jehovah's Witness was the fact that if you did something that was against like principle or law, essentially, you could get disfellowshipped if you were baptized, right? You could be essentially excommunicated. Like people, I mean, even there had to be limitations, even because my dad at one point he was, and I couldn't even like, there were certain things that I couldn't even like talk to him about because of the rules. And to me, that was like the complete opposite of love. Like, how can we say our God is a God of love, but because I'm your child and because I do something that goes against what you want, you everybody can't talk to me?
Yeah.
But essentially, that's what I did to my daughter. Like I need you to know you're wrong. I'm mad at you. I'm taking things away, and that breeds I'm not good enough. It breeds like transactional relationships. It breeds codependency, right? Like there's so much that comes from that type of dynamic. And again, like the dating to the parenting to like, it's all connected. It's
Mm-hmm.
all connected. So it's so important for us to be aware of our shit so that we can
Definitely.
actually face it. Because that was the biggest thing is like, I was not ready to face myself, like
Mm-hmm.
legit. I even found myself at one point, like I realized I didn't want to spend, like I gave my daughter things, like she had all the toys in the world, she had all the electronics, she had everything under the sun. But the quality time was the one thing that I wasn't like big on giving her. And I realized it was almost like like I was like, dang, do I like my child? Like I love her, right? But I'm like, I had to ask myself, like, do I actually like my child? Why am I not like I felt like a bad parent, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I realized because I don't like myself, and
Mm-hmm.
she's me.
Yeah. It's
So it
because
was like I was looking in the
yeah.
mirror, and that hurts. Like who wants to do that, you know?
Mhm. For sure. And I also feel like from a kid's perspective, like we don't necessarily understand why things are happening the way that they are. So it's like the adult me can now conceptualize and say, you know what, you really didn't need to go on that trip. Like you were really wilding and you deserve the punishment that you got. But like in the moment it wasn't communicated properly. So as a result it felt like the love was pulled back.
Right.
Felt like it was the ultimate punishment. It was the ultimate stoning. And now I have a scarlet letter that I will never forget.
Yeah. Perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Why we have these conversations now.
Right. I love it because who knows? Like we making these types of connections. Of course, like I feel like honestly everything connects to a core wound or a trauma in our life.
Mm-hmm.
And trauma is that big word, but we all have trauma. It's just different levels. Trauma doesn't have to be the big scary things. I mean, I even realized I had hair trauma from growing up. Like, it took me a long time to get to the confidence of being able to wear my hair just natural. Like, because I grew up very like edges laid, hair, weed popping. Like, I mean, my mom did hair. So, like, every event your girl had, like, we were on point. But I didn't realize like that was a trauma because I was always hiding. Like, I always had weave, I had bangs, I had just all these cover ups.
For
And it wasn't
sure.
until I became an adult and I was like, damn, that's trauma, because it really did affect how I thought about myself.
Mm-hmm.
I
Girl,
felt to be beautiful, I had to wear those things.
when I moved to Mexico, my mom, same thing, like, hair slayed to the gods, right? But I didn't necessarily learn how to do those things. And here I am in Mexico and I ain't seen a black person in months. And I'm like, okay, what am I about to do to my hair? Because that gel that they using, that ain't gonna work over here in this 4C. And I remember like the moment when I started wearing my natural hair and it was like, okay, I don't have a perm. Like all of these things are going on and my insecurities were through the roof. And I remember doing a video on TikTok and I absolutely archived it because the comments were not nice.
Mm-hmm.
um, just talking about my insecurities and how I was just like moving through like this whole like identity crisis I was finally having. And I was just like, wow, like, okay, I didn't realize this was such a big thing for me. And like,
Right.
yeah, like let's sit with this
Mm-hmm.
and really like address what's going on. And also this idea of like what makes the perfect black woman in her hair being perfection and all that stuff. And knowing that like even if my edges aren't laid, that I'm still beautiful and I'm still pretty and worth taking a picture.
Yeah. And look, listen, I still lay some edges. Listen, but it wasn't until the past like year or two that I actually was okay with, like, I was like, okay, you're still pretty even though you didn't like use edge control. Like, legit. And it's kind of crazy, like I had to really chew on that because it was I didn't realize two things could be true, and this is why I think I say it all the time now. Because it was like my mom, like, there was no malicious intent. She was
Mhm.
expressing love in something that she was confident in, right? And that's how she grew up, with hair crack. Like, that was how it's like I'm making sure that my child, go, and Lord knows, because I definitely went to school with some girls, and I was like, dang, could we not have gotten a matching ponytail, Let me stop talking about people. But it's like she was doing it out of love, and
Mhm.
that was how she was expressing her love. But it breeded a completely different internal message for me. And that's just like the dynamics of life. It's like two things can be true. And that's why I think I'm so aware of the things that I say to my child, because I just remember, like, I remember, if more than anything else, I may not remember all the details about like physical things that were there or anything, but I remember above anything else how I felt when things were said to me, when things were done. Um, and that stuck with me into adulthood. So I always try to be cognizant now of how this can be interpreted and how it can affect, like the growing mind, right? That's trying to figure this out, like this thing called life that is taking some of us like 30 and 40 years to get.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. I was able to move through my hair stuff because I was in another part of the world and the criticism was like very different. So I was able to, my response to it was not to like my edges. It was to be very wild, to be very free. I remember just like going on the boat tours and like jumping in the water, knowing that my hair is about to look crazy when I come out of there and not have a care in the world and still just like, yay, I had so much fun and all the things. And I remember just like coming back to the States and being like, okay, cool, like what are we gonna do? Like, are we getting a perm? Are we getting edge control? Like, what's the dynamic going to be? And I ended up talking to a guy about my insecurities. And he had dreads, and he was very much like pro-black and the 4C movement and all the things. And I was just like,
Yeah.
wow. It blew my mind to know someone who like had a completely different upbringing around their hair and around
Yeah.
that whole dynamic. And I was just like, okay, cool. I am choosing to move away from my own lack, my own insecurity, and like move into that world. I didn't even know that that was an option, especially surrounded by other people that look like me. And it was just like, okay, cool. Like, I need to feel safe and comfortable in me. In the same way that I felt safe in expressing my boundaries about things that I didn't want to do, I also had to set boundaries around my hair and people like talking about me and things like that. And just being like, oh, no, my hair's done. I just undone it all. Like, outfit is complete. Look is done. Like, and all those things. And it really gave me a deeper sense of self and confidence because it was just like, okay, cool. In this moment, I very much feel like I'm going against the grain and I can get extremely exhausted trying to fight for people to see it from my perspective. But I don't need them to see it from my perspective. I just need to be me and my authentic self. And that's all that I can ask for. And the people who will love it. And the people who won't, deuces.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's like the ultimate goal for most people, even when they don't realize it. It's to just accept ourselves. We be thinking we're trying to get acceptance from other people, but it's us. It's our
Mm-hmm.
own judgment, our own criticism, our own guilt, our own shame. That's the issue, not anyone else's.
Yeah.
So this journey, I tell you, it is, and that's, I think, the beauty, and that's how I go in when I meet men is really just being open because you never know. Like we all have limiting beliefs. Like it doesn't matter how long you've been on this journey, right? Like we all got layers of things.
Yeah.
Um, but to think about like anytime this man that I meet tomorrow may not be my husband, but he could be the one that could help me to see a part of myself that as worthy that maybe I didn't previously. He could be someone that made me just have this like really deep belly laugh that I haven't had in like months. Or it just may be just like just this dope, like smooth, like, connection where it's just like we just talk about like all these deep topics and spirituality and like our journeys and all these things. Like you just never know. But if we're so focused on, oh, is this my man or is this my wife or is this my husband?
Mm-hmm.
We block ourselves off from a lot of the good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And when we take the blinders off and really just allow what is to be, you will realize like how much like knowledge and just like beauty is out in the world. Like you said, like that person can come into your life. Somebody came into my life and brought back my joy for dance, right? And I was just like, wow, I didn't even know that I needed that. Okay, cool. Let's do it
Hmm.
again. It's like, oh, thank you to that man. You were not my person, but you brought me back.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't have to be exhausted. You don't have to feel like there's pee in the dating pool. You truly get to move and operate from a place of alignment and flow and fun. I think
Absolutely. And you deserve that. Like we deserve to have enjoyable experiences. Like if you're gonna do something, like make it meaningful, make it count, make it be worth it.
yeah.
'Cause more than likely you probably got a lot of stuff on your schedule anyway. So like if you're gonna
Mhm.
take the time to do something and go out with somebody, like we are no longer saying yes to things that do not feel like a full body yes to us.
Preach.
Period.
Yeah. I don't do things I don't want to do.
Right. Like it's the ghetto. Like what?
I mean,
I do not want to go back there. Because I remember that girl felt drained. She felt like she just like she didn't feel valued. She didn't feel seen. She didn't feel excited. She didn't feel like that she enjoyed life. And that is, I don't want to go back to that. That's not a fun place to be. And especially if you're adding people into it, it's one thing to sit in your own shit, but then to be out with somebody and you sitting in that too, like hell no.
the
I don't
vibration
want it.
is too big.
I don't want it.
Yeah. For sure.
And
But
that's something we need to add that we need to add an episode to this lineup of lessons from our exes.
gotcha.
I think that would be a good one because it's definitely important to shift that perspective, right? We be thinking, "Oh, I wasted my time," or because it didn't turn out to be the husband or whatever, or maybe it was the husband because one of mine was a husband. But even though I say that didn't count, it was practice.
For sure.
But the point
Tesla.
is, like, there's lessons from all of them.
Mhm.
I think that would be a good one to explore. What you think?
Absolutely. I love that idea. Especially because I find that the more I talk to people, the more I'm like, they want to go back to who they were before the heartbreak, like before that ex. And I'm like, we cannot go back.
Right.
You needed the lesson.
Right. And we need to integrate. Yeah, like there's new parts of us just like that person I was trying to go back to the dancer, but it was like I was trying to go back to an old identity.
Hmm.
Trying to go back to carry this old identity with all these new experiences rather than integrating it and truly seeing like where do I feel in alignment right now? Is
Yeah.
this something that I desire? Is this something, do I actually want this? Or is it just because it was a part of me for so long, it felt like, I felt like, oh, let me go run back and get it, right?
Hmm.
That integration is so key. But yeah, we can learn. There's so many lessons. And I actually do this. I do this as a practice. I write down after each connection a win and a lesson from everybody.
Absolutely. For sure. I even do that in like friendships or just like family dynamics. I'm like,
Yeah.
there's something to learn in every single relationship that we exist in. You cannot get those lessons in isolation. So, like, although it is very important to spend time with self, ultimately people are mirrors to you. And it's just like, okay, cool. I got in this relationship or I went on this date and this person mirrored something back to me or it like triggered something within me. And it's like, okay, cool. Now I know. I probably would have taken forever for me to figure that out on my own. So thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. And that creates, I think, especially like that creates like just this level of gratitude, right? Which, if you have the energy of gratitude that is up there with love, that is one of the highest vibrations. And if you are in that and can be grateful for even what could have been the worst relationship you've had, but you learn something and it's like, wow, well, thank you. Because now I know, like, I know to look for signs, right? I know I don't want a narcissist, or like now I can pay attention to certain behaviors. Now I know like I needed to learn to vet men before I actually get into a relationship. Like whatever it is, we can have gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
I have so much gratitude for my trauma.
Yeah,
I wouldn't wish it on anyone, right? But
for
I am
sure.
truly grateful. I wouldn't be who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a
I
goddamn like, this is a win over here. Listen.
I
So
saw this video today where this girl was like, she met this guy and they like hit it off on the first day and she like invited him back to her house and she woke up the next day and he robbed her. Like he took her TV, like he took all these things. And I was looking at the video and I was like, okay, now what did you learn?
did it come? Did the lessons come, or was it just the? Yeah,
Are we just gonna, but are we gonna learn the lesson?
right. Yeah. And then environment, that speaks a lot to your environment and your community, right? Because if you're around women that have the same type of mentality about men, in response to that, oh, he ain't or, da 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 da, rather than, hey, being that friend, like, hey girl, that really sucks. But like, what, did you feel like maybe if this situation was to basically reoccur, like, what would you do different? Type of thing. Like, people that actually challenge, right? Rather than just validating and enabling, certain things, right? It's so important to have community. If you have people that have more of a negative mindset and are always complaining, you're probably not going to be in your most abundant era in life
Yeah, for
because you
sure.
are the average of your five closest friends.
Preach. Yeah.
So look at your environment. If you're trying to step into this new era and you're trying to change your mindset and you're trying to love yourself more and all of that, like who are you hanging around? Because more than likely, it's going to be very hard, especially when you're trying to, right? Like you're learning the things and you're making these changes, but then you're constantly still around the same people that have a completely different, that don't support this new person that you're becoming. Like it's going to be very difficult, not impossible,
Yeah.
but especially without boundaries, it's
Mm-hmm.
you're setting yourself up for failure, pretty much.
And that's when independence comes in, where it's just like you need to be strong willed enough on your own that it's like, oh, hey, actually, I can't hang out next weekend because I'm going to this conference, or like I'm going to, the opera or whatever the case may be. Like, you need to be so strong willed in what it is that you desire moving forward that you have the strength to push away the things that do not align with where we are trying to go and saying love you, but right now I'm in a different season in my life, and maybe you'll come to this season, like maybe you'll see my elevation and you'll feel pulled to, but I will not pull you. I will not try to convince you. I will just exist in my own world and receive all the benefits of this new mentality and this new energy.
I love that because I was trying to pull. I was like, you don't see this growth? You don't see this healing? Like, oh my gosh, like, why are you not? Come on. I was like that, that mom that you see in the grocery store trying to drag their toddler out the store. Like, because it was like, this is amazing, right? Like, I learned these things. Like, I'm like, oh, movement heals, right? Like, come on. Like, incorporate movement in your life. Like, get this healing. And it's like, it doesn't work that way. Sometimes it does take us to have to go into isolation or to, explore other communities, right? Like to explore communities that support this new era that you're in.
Yeah.
Because none of us can do it alone.
Mm-hmm. And also realizing that like it's gonna look different for everyone. Like how you took the plant medicine route, and it's like, oh, I took a yogi route, and it's like, but here we are having a similar experience in this conversation, being like, oh yeah, did that? How did you work on that? Yep, and I got through that, and it's like, okay, cool. We will meet where we're supposed to meet and have the experiences that we're supposed to have as long as we ourselves are doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're in alignment, like there's literally, I mean, what's the best that can happen?
Mm-hmm.
So
I love these conversations.
Yes. I'm already excited for next week.
I know. I'm really, really excited. I think next week it should be the letters from the ex because I'm like, ooh, I have.
I know that one. I don't even know where it came from, but I'm excited about that one. So yeah, let's do that one.
Yay.
That will be good. And hopefully, I'll talk to you offline. But yeah. I certainly appreciate everyone that has stopped in, peeked, whatever, scrolled. I appreciate you too.
Yeah.